she posted. Some men just can't handle a strong, independent woman. After I asked why she never contributes to bills, I Venmo'd her with the caption, "Here's your independence fee. We're done," and tagged all our mutual friends. She deleted everything within an hour. I, 29M, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am at 2 a.m., staring at my phone and trying to process what just happened. My relationship of 3 years just imploded in the most spectacular way possible, and I'm honestly not sure if I should feel proud or horrified. Let me back up and explain how we got here. I met her through mutual friends at a house party 3 years ago. She was gorgeous, confident, and had this way of commanding attention when she walked into a room. She worked in marketing for a startup and talked constantly about female empowerment, breaking glass ceilings, and how she refused to be dependent on any man. I found it attractive at first. Here was a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. The first few months were incredible. She was passionate about everything: her career, her goals, social justice causes. We'd stay up until 3 a.m. talking about changing the world. She'd post inspirational quotes about strong women on her Instagram stories, and I'd share them proudly. I thought I'd found someone who would be my equal partner in life. But somewhere around the 6-month mark, things started shifting in ways I didn't immediately recognize. It began small. When we'd go out to dinner, she'd conveniently forget her wallet or claim her card wasn't working. She'd laugh it off, saying she'd get me next time. Next time never came. When I brought it up, she'd deflect with jokes about how I was such a gentleman, or she'd launch into stories about her difficult childhood and how money stress triggered her anxiety. I didn't want to be the guy who nickels and dimes his girlfriend, so I let it slide. Besides, she was working hard at her startup job, and I knew they weren't paying her much yet. I made decent money as a software engineer, so I figured I could handle covering most of our expenses until she got more established. After a year, she moved in with me. It made financial sense, she said. She could save money on rent and put it toward her career goals. She promised she'd contribute to household expenses once she got her next promotion. I was excited about taking this step together. That promotion never materialized. In fact, 6 months after moving in, she quit her job. She claimed her boss was sexist and didn't appreciate her innovative ideas. She said she needed time to figure out her next move and maybe start her own business. Meanwhile, she'd spend entire days on the couch scrolling through social media, posting motivational content about entrepreneurship and female empowerment. I covered rent, utilities, groceries, car insurance, streaming services, her phone bill, everything. When I gently suggested she might want to look for temporary work while planning her business, she'd get defensive. She'd tell me I didn't understand the pressure she was under or how hard it was for women in the workplace. She'd say she needed my support, not my judgment. For 2 years, I supported us both financially while she pursued various business ventures that never seemed to materialize into actual income. She'd get excited about drop shipping for a few weeks, then pivot to affiliate marketing, then decide she wanted to be a lifestyle influencer. She'd spend money on courses and coaching programs that promised to teach her the secrets to online success, using my credit card because her business expenses were investments in our future. Meanwhile, her social media presence grew more aggressive. She'd post daily about toxic masculinity, about men who tried to control women with money, about how a real man supports his woman's dreams unconditionally. Her followers would comment with fire emojis and praise her for speaking truth to power. I'd see these posts and feel a knot in my stomach, wondering if she was talking about me. The final straw came last month. I'd been tracking our expenses because my savings were getting dangerously low. Between her business courses, her daily coffee shop visits, her shopping hauls that she justified as investing in her brand, and all our regular expenses, we were spending almost double what I was bringing in. I'd put over $40,000 on credit cards in the past year alone. I decided to have a calm, honest conversation about our finances. I printed out our expense reports and sat her down on a Sunday morning. I told her I loved her and wanted to support her dreams, but we needed to make some changes. I suggested she might want to consider part-time work while building her business, just to help with expenses. She exploded. She accused me of trying to sabotage her entrepreneurial journey. She said I was just like every other man who couldn't handle a woman's ambition. She stormed out of the apartment and didn't come home until the next evening. Over the following weeks, her social media posts became more pointed. She'd share articles about financial abuse in relationships. She'd post about men who use money to control women. She'd write long captions about how society tries to keep women small and dependent. Her comment sections filled with women sharing their own stories about unsupportive partners. I tried to talk to her several more times, but every conversation ended the same way. She'd accuse me of not believing in her, of trying to force her into a traditional gender role, of being threatened by her independence. She'd cry and say she thought I was different from other men. Last Tuesday, things reached a breaking point. Our credit card bill came in at over $8,000 for the month. She'd signed up for 3 different business coaching programs, bought a professional camera for her content creation, and purchased what she called a strategic wardrobe investment, basically a complete closet overhaul. I asked her to sit down so we could go through the charges together. I wasn't angry, just exhausted and desperate to understand how we'd gotten so deep in debt. I asked her when she planned to start contributing financially to our household. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. She told me she couldn't believe I was reducing her worth to dollar signs. She said she contributed in other ways: emotional support, maintaining our home, being my partner. When I pointed out that I was the one doing most of the cooking and cleaning while also working 50-hour weeks, she accused me of keeping score like a child. The conversation ended with her telling me she needed space to think. She went to stay at her friend's place for a few days. That's when she posted it. The post that broke everything wide open. Thursday afternoon, she shared a long Instagram post with a photo of herself looking contemplative by a coffee shop window. The caption read, "Sometimes the trash takes itself out. When a man can't handle your independence and tries to control you with money, it says everything about his character and nothing about yours. Real men support their queens unconditionally. The right person will celebrate your ambitions, not try to dim your light. Some men just can't handle a strong, independent woman. To all my ladies out there, never settle for someone who doesn't see your worth." The post had dozens of comments within an hour. Her friends were praising her bravery and calling her inspiring. Several people made comments about dodging bullets and finding better. A few of our mutual friends liked the post, which stung more than I expected. I stared at my phone in complete disbelief. After 3 years together, after I'd supported her financially and emotionally while she chased every dream that crossed her mind, this was how she was choosing to frame our relationship problems. I wasn't a controlling abuser. I was an exhausted partner trying to have an honest conversation about our unsustainable financial situation. But what really sent me over the edge were the comments from people who knew us both. Our mutual friends were liking and commenting as if they had any idea what our actual dynamic was like. They were supporting her narrative without knowing that I'd been paying for literally everything in her life for the past 2 years. I sat with my phone for about an hour, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. Then I opened Venmo. I calculated every major expense I'd covered for her over the past year: rent, utilities, groceries, her business courses, her shopping, everything I could document. It came to just over $32,000. I sent her a Venmo request for $32,000 with the caption, "Here's your independence fee. Since you're so independent and strong, I'm sure you can handle paying me back for the past year of expenses I covered while supporting your dreams. We're done." But here's where I might have gone too far. In my anger and hurt, I made the Venmo request public and tagged every mutual friend who had liked or commented on her post. I wanted them to see the reality of our situation, not just her carefully curated version. The notification must have gone out immediately to everyone tagged. Within minutes, my phone was buzzing with texts and calls. Some friends were shocked, others were asking what was going on, and a few were telling me I'd crossed a line by making it public. But the reaction that mattered most came from her. She called me screaming about how I was trying to humiliate her. She said I was proving her point about men who use money as weapons. She was crying and furious and threatened to have her friends come over and collect her things. I told her she could have her things, but I was done being her personal ATM while she portrayed me as some controlling villain on social media. I told her that if she wanted to be independent and strong, she could start by taking responsibility for the financial mess we were in together. Within an hour of my Venmo post going live, her original Instagram post was deleted. Then her story posts started disappearing. By evening, she deleted several other posts from recent weeks that painted me in a bad light. Update 1. It's been 3 days since everything exploded, and the fallout has been more intense than I expected. She came to collect her things yesterday with two of her friends. The whole process was incredibly awkward. Her friends kept giving me dirty looks while she packed, and I could hear them whispering about what a terrible person I was. She tried to take some items that I'd bought, a laptop I'd purchased for her business, an expensive coffee machine, some furniture. When I pointed out that these were things I'd paid for, one of her friends accused me of being petty and controlling. I told them they could have anything that was legitimately hers, but I wasn't going to keep funding her lifestyle now that we were broken up. They left with several boxes, making sure to slam the door on their way out. The public response to my Venmo post has been mixed. Several of our mutual friends have reached out privately to say they had no idea about our financial dynamic. A few admitted they always wondered how she afforded her lifestyle on her inconsistent income. One friend told me she'd always found it strange how someone who posted constantly about independence seemed to never pay for anything when we all went out together. But I've also lost some friends over this. 3 people have told me that airing our private financial business was cruel and humiliating, regardless of what led up to it. One friend said I should have just broken up with her quietly instead of trying to destroy her reputation. Another said that even if I was frustrated, publicly shaming her was abusive behavior. I've been going back and forth about whether I crossed a line. In the moment, I was so angry and hurt that I wanted everyone to see the truth behind her social media narrative. I was tired of being painted as the bad guy when I'd been nothing but supportive for years. But now I'm wondering if there was a better way to handle it. The money aspect has been interesting. She hasn't responded to the actual Venmo request, obviously. But 2 of her friends have suggested that I was wrong to keep track of expenses in a relationship, and that asking for money back is proof that I never really loved her. They've said that when you love someone, you support them without expecting anything in return. I've been thinking about that a lot. Is it wrong to expect your partner to contribute financially? Is it controlling to want some equity in a relationship? I genuinely don't know anymore. What I do know is that I feel lighter than I have in months. Walking into my apartment and not wondering what expensive course or coaching program will show up on my credit card statement feels incredible. Not having to justify why I'm concerned about our financial future feels like breathing again. Update 2. It's been a week now, and things have gotten even messier. She started posting again, but with a different strategy. Instead of directly addressing what happened, she's been sharing content about narcissistic abuse and financial manipulation in relationships. She posted a carousel of slides yesterday about love bombing and how abusive partners use financial control to trap their victims. The timing and content make it clear she's talking about me, even though she doesn't mention me directly. Her comment sections are filled with support from people telling her she dodged a bullet and that she deserves better. Several people have shared their own stories about financially abusive relationships. A few have even said they're inspired by her strength to leave such a toxic situation. Reading these posts has been surreal. She's positioned herself as the victim of financial abuse when the reality was that I supported her completely while she contributed nothing. I'm genuinely starting to question my own perception of what happened. But then I look at my credit card statements and bank records, and the numbers don't lie. Over the course of our relationship, I spent over $70,000 supporting both of us, while she contributed maybe $3,000 total, and most of that was in the early months before she moved in. The mutual friend situation has largely sorted itself out. About half of them have reached out to check on me and get my side of the story. Several have admitted they always suspected something was off about her financial situation but didn't want to pry. One friend told me she'd heard her bragging about never having to worry about money because she had me trained well. The other half have clearly chosen her side. I've been unfriended on social media by several people, and 2 friends told me directly that they can't support someone who would publicly humiliate a woman the way I did. I've started therapy to help process everything. My therapist has been helping me understand the dynamics of what she calls financial codependency. She's explained how my desire to be supportive and generous was exploited, and how the relationship had become fundamentally unbalanced in ways that weren't sustainable or healthy. But she's also helped me see how my public response, while understandable, was ultimately destructive for both of us. She said that when we're hurt and angry, we often want to expose the truth and make people see reality from our perspective. But public humiliation rarely leads to the vindication we're seeking. It usually just creates more pain and drama. I've been thinking about whether I should have handled things differently. Part of me still feels justified in my response. She was publicly painting me as a controlling, unsupportive partner while privately depending on me for everything. Her narrative was so far from reality that I felt desperate to set the record straight. But another part of me wishes I'd just broken up with her privately and walked away. The public drama has been exhausting, and it's forced me to relive our relationship problems over and over as I defend myself to mutual friends and family members who've heard her version of events. Update 3. 2 weeks have passed, and I'm finally starting to feel like I can see this situation clearly. The most significant development came this past Monday. One of her close friends, someone who had been very supportive of her on social media, reached out to me privately. She told me she'd been having some troubling conversations with my ex over the past few days. Apparently, my ex had been asking this friend for money. She claimed she was in a desperate financial situation after leaving our abusive relationship and needed help getting back on her feet. She asked for $3,000 to cover a security deposit and first month's rent for a new apartment. Her friend started asking questions about her financial situation and began to realize that the story wasn't adding up. When she asked what my ex had been contributing to our household expenses, my ex gave vague answers about emotional labor and support. When pressed for specifics, she admitted that I had been covering most of the bills, but insisted it was because I was controlling and wouldn't let her work. Her friend asked about the business ventures and coaching programs. My ex claimed those were necessary investments that I had approved, but when her friend asked to see her business plan or any income projections, my ex became defensive and said she shouldn't have to prove herself to people who claimed to support her. The conversation apparently ended with my ex asking her friend to just trust her and provide the money without asking so many questions. When her friend said she needed to think about it, my ex accused her of being just like everyone else who didn't believe in supporting women. This friend reached out to me because she realized that maybe there was more to the story than what she'd seen on social media. We talked for over an hour, and I shared the financial records I had, credit card statements, Venmo transactions, receipts for her business courses and purchases. I also showed her text message conversations where I'd tried to discuss our financial situation and had been shut down or accused of being unsupportive. By the end of our conversation, her friend was apologetic and honestly a bit shocked. She said she'd always assumed that anyone posting so much about independence and female empowerment must be living those values in their personal life. She admitted that she'd never questioned the narrative because she wanted to support another woman who claimed to be struggling with a difficult partner. Since then, 2 other friends have reached out to me with similar stories. Apparently, my ex has been making the rounds asking for financial help from various people in her network. She's been telling different versions of her story depending on the audience, but the common themes are that she's escaping an abusive situation and needs help getting back on her feet. One friend told me she'd been asked for money for a therapy deposit to deal with the trauma from our relationship. Another was asked to help fund a business venture that would help her achieve financial independence. In each case, when people asked for more details or suggested she might want to look for temporary work, she became defensive and accused them of not understanding her situation. I realized that this pattern of financial dependence and manipulation wasn't something that started with me. It was a long-standing pattern of behavior that I'd enabled for 3 years. The hardest part has been accepting my own role in this dynamic. My therapist helped me understand that my desire to be generous and supportive had crossed into enabling territory. By never setting boundaries or requiring accountability, I'd actually prevented her from developing the independence she claimed to want. She helped me see that true support sometimes means allowing people to face the consequences of their choices rather than constantly rescuing them. By covering all of her expenses and never insisting on contribution, I'd created a situation where she could maintain her lifestyle without any responsibility. But the most important realization has been about my own boundaries. I spent 3 years prioritizing her feelings and reactions over my own financial security and peace of mind. Every time I wanted to address our imbalanced dynamic, I talked myself out of it because I didn't want to seem controlling or unsupportive. I'm still processing whether my public response was justified. My therapist thinks it was understandable, but not constructive. She said that when we feel gaslit or misrepresented, the urge to expose the truth publicly can be overwhelming. But she also pointed out that public humiliation rarely changes anyone's behavior. It usually just escalates conflict and creates more drama. Looking back, I wish I had set clearer boundaries much earlier in our relationship. I wish I'd insisted on financial contribution from the beginning instead of letting small instances of her not paying slide into a pattern of complete dependence. I wish I'd recognized that her social media posts about independence were performative rather than reflective of how she actually lived. But I also wish I'd ended things privately instead of creating a public spectacle. While I understand my motivation, and while the Venmo post did reveal the truth about our financial dynamic to our mutual friends, it also caused unnecessary humiliation and drama. The relationship is definitely over, and honestly, I'm relieved. I'm sleeping better than I have in months. My anxiety about money has decreased dramatically. I'm not walking on eggshells trying to figure out how to address our financial problems without triggering accusations of being controlling. I've learned that real independence isn't something you post about on social media. It's something you demonstrate through your actions and choices. And real partnership isn't about one person supporting the other unconditionally while expecting nothing in return. It's about mutual contribution and shared responsibility. The Venmo request is still sitting there, obviously unpaid. I don't expect to ever see that money back, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I consider it the cost of learning some very important lessons about boundaries, enabling, and the difference between support and codependency. As for her, I hope she eventually finds the independence she posts about so much. But I also hope she learns that independence means taking responsibility for your own life, not just finding new people to depend on while claiming to be strong and self-sufficient. I'm focusing on rebuilding my financial stability and figuring out what I want in a future relationship. Next time, I'll know to look for someone whose actions match their words and who wants to build something together rather than just benefit from what I can provide. The whole experience has been painful and messy, but ultimately educational. I'm grateful for the clarity, even if it came at a high cost.